A young boy is sitting in a classroom while his teacher teaches him mathematics. During the lesson, the boy shows the teacher a formula. The teacher looks at it and calls him Prince Cecil, saying that no such theorem exists. Cecil calmly replies that he already knows this and explains that he created the theorem himself. The teacher is shocked that someone so young has created a new theorem and leaves to inform others about it. After the teacher leaves, Cecil remarks that it is for the best. It is revealed that Prince Cecil is a genius who can remember anything he hears instantly. The teacher wondered if he was teaching a student or witnessing a walking encyclopedia. Later during the day, a girl comes and stands in front of Cecil. She introduces herself in a strange way, saying that she is a villainess and that her role is to separate the prince and the heroine. She claims that her actions will shock everyone. Cecil finds her words confusing and admits that they do not make much sense. He introduces himself as Cecil Glow Alfasta, the crown prince of the Alfasta kingdom. He explains that it is the first day he is meeting his fiancée, Bercia Villainess, who is the daughter of a marquis. Since her words are difficult to understand, Cecil invites Bercia to have tea with him, and she agrees. During this meeting, Cecil introduces her to Zeno, his personal butler. Bertia stares at Cecil in a strange way, which makes him ask why she is looking at him like that. She tells him that he seems too mature for his age and wonders if he has been reincarnated. Cecil denies this and says that he has simply been taught to behave properly as a member of royalty. Zeno, standing behind him, thinks to himself that this is not normal at all, and that even a philosopher would struggle to deal with a 10-year-old like Cecil. Bertia then continues speaking and says that, although Cecil may find it strange, she remembers her past life. She explains that in the future, Cecil will become angry and break their engagement. She adds that if she loses, she will accept her defeat gracefully and become a flower of evil. Cecil finds it difficult to understand her and thinks that he has never struggled this much to understand someone before. He concludes that she must have a very strong imagination and that she wants to become a certain kind of person. Cecil asks her what she means by a flower of evil. Thus, Bertia explains that it is someone who is strong, noble, and beautiful, and who continues walking on her chosen path even if it leads to destruction. Cecil becomes interested in her strong personality, which makes Bertia feel embarrassed. She quickly insists that he is misunderstanding her and says that she will become a perfect villainess by improving herself. After saying this, she runs away, leaving Cecil confused. Cecil later reflects on their interaction and decides that he wants to observe her for some time. He notes that although her manners and actions are unusual, unpredictability is what makes her interesting. Since he usually understands and learns everything quickly, his life has become boring. He hopes that trying to understand Berta will bring some excitement to his life. Zeno quietly thought that observing Berta might be the prince's first real challenge. A year passes, and Zeno brings Cecil a message about Berta. He reports that she has locked herself in her room for the entire year, which seems worrying. However, Cecil calmly says that she is doing fine. A few days later, Cecil and Zeno visit Berta's house. When they arrive, Berta greets them and asks if Cecil recognizes her. Cecil notices that she has changed a lot, especially in her appearance, and realizes that she has lost weight. Berhea moves closer to Cecil and asks if he mistook her for someone else. At that moment, her father scolds her for her improper behavior toward the crown prince and apologizes to Cecil. However, Cecil says that he finds her honesty refreshing and even calls her cute. This makes Berhea blush and become shy. Later, while they are having tea together, Cecil presents Berhea with a special cake. At first, she refuses to eat it because she is on a diet, but when Cecil tells her that it is sugar-free, she becomes happy and eats it immediately. Cecil observes her and thinks that someone like her should not reveal her intentions so openly. Bertia becomes excited and says that defeating enemies secretly is the best approach, while exposing too much is foolish. Cecil agrees outwardly but internally thinks that she may be misunderstanding him. Cecil then mentions that his 11th birthday is coming soon and says that he is glad Bertia will celebrate it with him. Hearing this reminds Bertia of something important. She tells him that when she turns 10, a serious epidemic will spread in the kingdom. She explains that her mother will fall ill, and the medicine needed to treat the disease requires a rare luana leaf, which is very difficult to find. Because of this, her mother will eventually die. Cecil listens carefully and tells her that since this event will happen in the future, it can still be changed. Bertia hesitates and says that changing the future might affect Cecil as well, but Cecil does not focus on that concern. Instead, he reassures her by saying that as her fiancé, he will stand by her side and face any problem together with her. Another year passes, and Cecil visits Bertia again. This time, she is upset and calls him cruel because she wanted to take action against the epidemic, but he kept sending letters saying that everything was fine. Cecil calmly apologizes and explains that everything truly was fine. Bertia reveals that she tried to find the Luana leaf but failed, and that the epidemic never spread, which means her mother is now safe. Cecil then explains what he did. After hearing her story a year earlier, he used her information to identify the disease. He obtained permission to use a greenhouse and successfully grew the Luana plant himself. He studied it in the library and worked with experts to develop a medicine. He also guided doctors so that they could eventually discover and treat the disease on their own. Later, when a patient appeared, the treatment was successful. Zeno felt that the prince had solved a national crisis the same way others solved simple homework. Bertia is shocked by all of this and asks Cecil why he did so much for her. Cecil simply replies that she was worried, and he could not leave his fiancée in that state. Finally, he gives her a pendant that contains a universal antidote, explaining that he found its formula in a secret place in the library. He tells her that it is for her safety as his future wife. Bertia becomes emotional, thanks him, and promises that she will become a villainess who can repay his kindness. The Duke of Noches tells Cecil that it has already been a year since Bertia started encouraging him to do evil deeds. Cecil himself thinks about how quickly time has passed since the epidemic incident. Recently, Bertia has gone as far as preparing written material about crimes. While the documents are well organized and easy to read, the content is clearly about fraud, corruption, and other illegal activities. Cecil notices that the details feel very real and wonders if this knowledge comes from her past life. Even so, Bertia continues to talk about turning him into a villain almost all the time, believing it is necessary to follow the scenario she has in mind. Cecil quietly wondered how his life had turned into a lecture series on crime by his own fiancée. Some people assume that Bertia's behavior is just a phase, like being attracted to bad boys. However, Cecil questions why she is trying to make him into one. It is also mentioned that Bertia cares deeply about her father, so she would never try to lead him down a bad path. Cecil and Zeno both remain aware of everything happening around them, even when Bertia's ideas seem strange. Soon, the day of Cecil and Bertia's social debut arrives. The Duke feels both proud and worried about his daughter. Cecil calmly assures him that everything will be fine and that he will support Bertia if needed, although he admits that he might let things play out if something interesting happens. When Cecil meets Bertia at the event, he notices that she has become more beautiful. Even though her personality is still unusual, her behavior is surprisingly proper. It becomes clear that she has worked hard to learn proper manners. During the gathering, a man begins acting too familiarly with Bertia, touching her in a way that makes Cecil uncomfortable. Sensing something wrong, Cecil takes Bertia aside and asks her honestly if that man is the source of the information she used in her Villainess guidebook. Bertia admits that it is true. She explains that she approached him because she believed he was one of the people who influenced her father toward corruption, and she wanted to learn about evil deeds from him. Cecil then reveals something serious. He tells Bertia that the man has a hidden reputation for behaving inappropriately toward children. Bertia is shocked by this. When Cecil asks if the man touched her, she realizes that he did. Cecil reassures her that he will handle the situation and makes it clear that he will not stay silent if someone harms his fiancée. Bertia promises that she has not interacted with anyone else dangerous, although she mentions that there are still other people from the scenario she has not met yet. Cecil asks her to stop putting herself in danger, but Bertia refuses. She believes that if she gives up, it could ruin Cecil's future. Seeing that she will not change her mind, Cecil decides to take action in his own way. He informs the Duke that he has heard rumors about corruption involving several nobles. He also mentions that one of them has already approached Bertia and behaved improperly. The Duke becomes furious and promises to deal with them. Cecil suggests a plan. He asks the Duke to act as a spy and gather evidence against the corrupt nobles. The Duke agrees without hesitation. Cecil knows that watching multiple people will be difficult, especially since he will soon begin his life at the academy, which will limit his movements. Still, the plan is set in motion. Later, Cecil feels bored because everything in his life is too easy for him. He briefly thinks that things would be more interesting if Bertia were around. Suddenly, she appears in a panic and announces that something terrible has happened. She claims that a child has been conceived. Cecil is shocked and confused by this statement. Zeno silently decided this was the most dramatic way anyone had ever delivered normal family news. After asking her to explain, Cecil realizes that she is not talking about herself. Instead, Bertia reveals that her mother is pregnant with her father's child. Although relieved, Cecil feels slightly frustrated by the misunderstanding. He offers to send Bertia home in a carriage so they can talk, and after some hesitation, she agrees. At her home, Bertia apologizes and explains that this event has changed the original scenario. In the original story, her family had no heir and was supposed to adopt a boy named Coolgand. However, because her mother survived the illness and is now expecting a child, that storyline has changed. Bertia explains that Coolgand was meant to become close to Cecil and later serve as one of his important companions. Cecil finds this interesting and thinks it would be a waste if someone talented like that lost his opportunity. Bertia also reveals that in the game, there are multiple possible partners for the heroine, and the outcome depends on her choices. Cecil is surprised that she did not mention this earlier. He suggests that there is no need to break their engagement if someone else can end up with the heroine, but Bertia insists that Cecil must be the one to achieve a happy ending. Deciding to act, Cecil visits Coolgand, who lives in poor conditions. After speaking with him, Cecil realizes that he is intelligent and capable. He offers him a chance to become an adopted noble and secretly work as a spy to help uncover corruption. Coolgand accepts the offer with gratitude and promises his loyalty. In this way, Cecil ensures that the original scenario continues in a different form. Later, Bertia talks about something called a reverse harem, where one woman is loved by multiple men at the same time. Cecil immediately rejects this idea, saying it would be unacceptable and even dangerous. Bertia explains that such situations could happen through magical influence, but then realizes that magic does not exist in their world. Cecil corrects her by explaining that spirits do exist and that they can have powerful effects. He then reveals something surprising. Both he and Bertia have contracts with spirits. Cecil shows her that Zeno is actually his contracted spirit. Bertia is completely shocked and struggles to understand this new information. Dude felt that explaining spirits might somehow be easier than explaining Bertia herself. Cecil encourages her to study more about spirits, while Bertia tries to process everything that has happened. At the end of the day, a new girl appears and politely introduces herself as Heronia Inderon. In the academy, the student council president welcomes all the new students and congratulates them on joining the institution. On this important day, Prince Cecil's fiancée, Bertia, finally enrolls in the academy. Cecil observes this moment with quiet interest, knowing that her presence will likely make things more entertaining for him. At the academy, Cecil sits with his companions, including Coolgand and others. They casually talk about students around them, and one of them comments on Bertia's physical strength and posture, noting that she seems more trained than a typical noble lady. Another disagrees, believing she is simply elegant. Cecil quietly confirms that Bertia is indeed stronger than she appears. One of them secretly wondered if noble etiquette classes now included combat training. The group then mentions that Coolgand originally belonged to Bertia's extended family, but he explains that his position was too low for him to have ever met her before. Their conversation is interrupted when Cecil decides to leave, saying he wants to meet his fiancée. His friends are surprised as he usually does not show much interest in others. Curious, they decide to follow him to meet Bertia as well. Meanwhile, Bertia is trying to manage a chaotic situation involving her spirit companion, who is flying around uncontrollably. She struggles to control it and calls out for help. At that moment, Cecil arrives and greets her. He immediately notices her spirit and comments on its appearance, realizing that it has taken a form suitable for being around others. Bertia is shocked to see Cecil arrive earlier than expected, especially with other important people present. One of the girls nearby explains that Bertia had been worried Cecil might not come. This embarrasses Bertia, as her feelings are revealed in front of everyone. Cecil finds her reaction interesting and slightly amusing. Bertia then proudly says that she has made many followers, though she quickly corrects herself and calls them friends. Cecil gently tells her not to describe her friends in such a negative way. However, her friends themselves say they are part of a group that admires Bertia and supports her growth. This group acts like a fan club, watching over her and caring for her well-being. Bertia is surprised to learn that she has become popular without even realizing it. Cecil then presents her with a gift to celebrate her admission, a rare blue rose plant. He explains that he created it specially for her because he knows she likes that color. Bertia is overwhelmed and initially refuses to accept something so valuable. However, she cannot hide how much she likes it and eventually accepts the gift, though she tries to act composed. Bertia then mentions something called a meeting event, which confuses Cecil. She explains that in the original scenario, he was supposed to meet the heroine in a specific way involving a red rose. However, Cecil reveals that he has already seen the girl she is referring to, but he found her behavior strange and had no particular interest in her. This completely disrupts Bertia's expectations, and she becomes worried that the scenario is falling apart. Later, Cecil meets with Joanna, a girl who is closely connected to Bertia. Joanna explains that she is part of the group that admires Bertia and supports her. Cecil learns that Bertia's popularity has grown significantly, but it has also created jealousy among others. Joanna identifies a particular girl, Heronia Indiran, as a potential problem due to her feelings towards Cecil. However, Cecil does not seem worried. Instead, he trusts that Bertia's friends will support her. He also notes that Joanna thinks in a way similar to him, which makes him confident in her ability to handle difficult situations. At the same time, Cecil continues to guide Bertia in understanding the powers of spirits. He explains that dark-type spirits are especially good at defense and can protect against other influences. However, he also warns that such powers should not be used carelessly, especially in situations involving people. Soon after, Cecil receives an invitation from Bertia to meet in the garden. He feels excited, not because of romance, but because he is curious about what unexpected things she might do next. When he arrives, he notices that Bertia is hiding, while the heroine is nearby pretending to sleep. Cecil clearly understands the situation, but chooses to ignore the heroine and focus on Bertia instead. He reassures Bertia that everything is fine, and suggests they go for a walk together. Meanwhile, the heroine attempts to get his attention, but Cecil does not respond. Zeno quietly thought that ignoring someone so completely required a special kind of talent. As they walk, Bertia suddenly pretends that she forgot something and tries to create a situation where Cecil interacts with the heroine. However, her acting is very obvious and unconvincing. Cecil still goes along with it calmly, though he clearly understands what she is trying to do. Meanwhile, the heroine tries to create a romantic situation by pretending that they are trapped together in a classroom. She attempts to recreate a moment from the original scenario, but Cecil quickly realizes what is happening. He notices her spirit and understands that she may be using its influence to attract attention. Despite all these attempts, Cecil remains unaffected. Instead, he continues observing everything with interest. Over time, Bertia asks him how things are going with the heroine. Cecil explains that they have not even properly introduced themselves, as social rules prevent such interactions without formal introductions. This surprises Bertia, as she expected events to progress differently. Cecil then tells her that he has his own plan, and asks her to trust him. Bertia agrees, believing that he has a deeper understanding of the situation. However, Cecil himself begins to feel something unusual. While he enjoys watching Bertia's efforts to push him toward the heroine, he also feels slightly dissatisfied. He realizes that his feelings are becoming more complicated, but he does not fully understand them yet. For the first time, Cecil suspected that even he could not solve everything like a simple problem. Cecil remains focused on observing Bertia, while new emotions and challenges begin to appear, making his once predictable world slowly more uncertain. The older Prince Cecil casually leaves his duties with a girl on his shoulder, even though an important noble girl has already come as a potential marriage candidate. His younger brother Charles questions him, but Cecil simply tells him to handle it instead. He shows little interest in such meetings, which surprises those around him. Charles wondered if his brother was avoiding duty or just bored with perfection. In the present time, Cecil's attention remains focused on Bertia, who has been trying for a long time to bring him closer to the heroine, Heronia. During this time, Bertia has also started working on improving relationships with other people around Cecil. She believes that if everyone else finds their own partners, it will make it easier for Cecil and the heroine to come together. She proudly announces that she will act as a love cupid. Cecil listens to her idea calmly, even though he does not fully understand why she is putting in so much effort. Bertia explains that if the other potential male leads already have partners, they will not interfere with the main story. Cecil understands her explanation but still feels that her efforts are unnecessary. Bertia decides to begin with Bald and Cynthia, who are already engaged but do not seem close to each other. She approaches them with confidence, hoping to strengthen their relationship. However, things do not go as she planned. Cynthia turns out to be strong, skilled, and independent. Instead of needing Bald's help, she performs just as well as he, especially during horse riding. Cecil joins them during the outing, and the group soon turns the situation into a friendly competition. They begin riding at high speed, and Bertia struggles to keep up. She becomes nervous as the pace increases, while Cecil enjoys the moment. Eventually, the ride ends, and Bersuro is left shaken. Even so, she happily declares that her plan was a success, even though it did not go the way she expected. Cecil observes her reaction and finds it amusing. He agrees with her, although he knows her plan worked more by chance than design. At the same time, another situation begins involving Charles and a noble girl named Anne. Anne notices that Charles looks troubled and asks if something is wrong. He tries to avoid the topic, but Bersuro suddenly interferes and pushes him to speak honestly. Under pressure, Charles finally reveals his feelings. He admits that he has loved Anne for a long time. However, his feelings are complicated because Anne is also considered a potential match for his older brother. He feels that he has no right to pursue her, which has caused him emotional pain. He even tried to move on by seeing other women, but none of them could replace Anne. Cecil watches this carefully. He realizes that Charles is struggling with both his emotions and his sense of responsibility. Bertia, however, reacts strongly and questions why Charles is holding back if he truly loves Anne. Cecil steps in and offers advice. He tells Charles that while status is important, it is not everything. If he truly wants to be with Anne, he must work hard and become someone worthy of her. He also explains that Charles could gain an important position in the future, which would improve his standing. Encouraged by this, Charles gathers his courage and promises that he will become strong enough to confess his feelings properly. Anne also responds honestly. She says that while she understands the importance of arranged marriage, she wishes for a relationship based on real love. She agrees to think seriously about her future. This moment brings hope to both of them. Zeno quietly thought that Bersia's chaos had once again solved a problem no one else dared to touch. After this, Bersia proudly celebrates her success as a love cupid. Even though her methods were forceful and unexpected, they still brought results. Cecil acknowledges this but also notes how unpredictable her actions are. Later, Bersia focuses on another pair, Sean and Joanna. She notices that Sean behaves strangely around Joanna, often avoiding her. Wanting to fix this, Bersia creates another plan. She decides that making sweets together might help them become closer. With the help of Silica, who is good at cooking, Bertia organizes a baking activity. Joanna tries her best, but her cookies turn out badly. She feels embarrassed and disappointed in herself. Bertia and Silica encourage her not to give up and remind her that skills take time to develop. Joanna eventually decides to give her cookies to Sean. She apologizes before he even tastes them, knowing they are not good. Sean tries them and notices their poor quality, but he also realizes how much effort she put into making them. This changes his perspective. Instead of seeing Joanna as distant and perfect, he begins to see her as someone real and sincere. Her effort touches him more than the result. At the same time, another conflict appears between Silica and Nelt. Silica often takes care of Nelt, reminding him to stay organized and look after himself. However, Nelt becomes irritated and tells her to stop interfering in his life. His words hurt her deeply, and she decides to step away from him. After some time, Nelt realizes how much he depended on Silica. Without her, he feels uncomfortable and lost. He begins to understand her care and kindness. Eventually, he apologizes sincerely and asks her to stay by his side. Silica accepts his apology, and their relationship improves. Cecil later explains that Joanna's failed baking actually helped Sean see her true self. Bertia is surprised that her plan worked in such an unexpected way. This time, she feels proud but remains slightly calmer. In the end, Cecil reflects on everything. Bertia's actions are chaotic and often extreme, but they continue to bring positive results. Even so, he begins to sense that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. For the first time, Cecil wondered if Bertia's plans were chaotic or if they were strangely perfect in their own way. Cecil continues observing Bertia, knowing that her unpredictable nature will keep changing his once simple and controlled world. Two girls sat near the academy courtyard while reading a newly published book written by Bertia. The two of them looked completely fascinated as they flipped through the pages with excitement shining in their eyes. One of them could not stop praising how adorable the story was, while the other excitedly agreed and said that Bertia truly had an incredible imagination. They talked about how every person in the academy had already started discussing the book, and how Bertia somehow managed to charm everyone without even trying. To them, she seemed like the kind of person who naturally attracted affection wherever she went. Their cheerful conversation suddenly came to a halt when the heroine approached them. The irritation on her face was impossible to ignore. The moment she heard Bertief's name being praised again, her frustration boiled over. The girls looked confused and carefully asked what had happened, but the heroine immediately began complaining about Bertiva in an angry tone. The girl isn't even present, yet she still dominates the room harder than the actual people standing there. She bitterly claimed that Bertiva always interfered in her life and constantly inserted herself into situations where she did not belong. According to her, Bertiva had somehow managed to steal everyone's attention. Everywhere she looked, people only cared about Bersia's opinions, Bersia's kindness, and now even Bersia's writing. The more she complains, the more it sounds like Bersia is simply winning at life without trying. The heroine admitted that she could no longer tolerate seeing Bersia become more and more popular while everyone ignored her own efforts. Jealousy had completely taken over her thoughts. She angrily declared that she was done staying silent and that she would no longer let Bersia continue acting so freely. Not far away, Cecil quietly sat inside his room while reading reports from the academy. His expression remained calm as he reviewed the information in front of him, but the contents of the reports quickly caught his attention. It became obvious that the heroine's jealousy toward Bercia had grown much worse recently. Bercia's growing popularity among the students had become impossible to ignore, and it only seemed to fuel the heroine's resentment further. Rumors were already spreading throughout the academy that the heroine had become emotionally unstable because of her obsession with Bercia. Some students had even begun worrying that her jealousy might eventually push her toward doing something reckless. While Cecil remained deep in thought, Diano entered the room carrying documents from the student council. He respectfully handed the papers over and explained that the latest reports also included the student council speech. Cecil accepted the documents and quietly reflected on how reliable Diano had become over time. He worked efficiently, handled responsibilities properly, and had practically become someone Cecil depended on regularly. There was a level of trust between them that had grown naturally over the years. After a brief silence, Diano hesitated before speaking again. He admitted that he wanted advice regarding something personal. Curious, Cecil looked up and told him to continue. Diano awkwardly explained that earlier that morning, Bertu had approached him with an unusual request. She had innocently asked whether she could call him brother. Unsure of how to react, Diano initially refused her because he believed it would be inappropriate to accept without Cecil's permission first. The moment Cecil heard this, his expression subtly darkened. He immediately rejected the idea without hesitation. Even though the request itself sounded harmless, he clearly disliked it. Diano quickly explained that Berrio had looked genuinely disappointed after being turned down, and because of that, he felt guilty enough to ask Cecil about it directly. However, Cecil stubbornly refused once again. Deep down, he could not stand the thought of Berrio becoming emotionally close to another man, even in such a simple and innocent way. Though he tried to appear calm, his possessiveness was painfully obvious. At this point, Cecil would probably get jealous if Berrio adopted a puppy and called it cute. Meanwhile, the heroine continued spreading negativity about Berrio throughout the academy. Whenever she found an opportunity, she openly insulted her and tried to humiliate her in front of others. She repeatedly claimed that Bertia was unpleasant, manipulative, and completely useless. Her harsh words were clearly meant to damage Bertia's reputation and turn people against her. However, the situation did not go the way she expected. Before the argument could escalate further, Bertia herself arrived at the scene. Unlike the heroine, Bertia looked completely calm. Without anger or frustration in her voice, she gently told everyone not to argue because of her. She explained that there was no reason to fight simply because someone disliked her. If the heroine wished to insult her, then everyone should simply allow her to speak freely. Bertia insisted that creating conflict over such matters would only make things worse. Her response instantly changed the atmosphere around them. The students watching the situation became deeply moved by Bertia's calmness and maturity. Instead of reacting emotionally or defending herself aggressively, she handled the insults with kindness and patience. The heroine's cruel words only made Bertia appear even more admirable in comparison. Once again, Bertia unintentionally gained everyone's affection simply by remaining sincere and compassionate. Later that evening, Cecil sat alone, looking far more troubled than usual. Someone continued updating him about the events involving Bertia, but his thoughts wandered elsewhere. Deep down, Cecil had always wanted to protect Bertia from every possible hardship. To him, she seemed delicate enough to deserve constant care and protection. He wanted to keep her safe from cruel people, painful situations, and disappointment. Yet recently, Bertia herself had quietly told him that she did not need his help anymore. Even though her words had not been cruel, they stayed painfully fixed inside Cecil's mind. Bertia had not rejected him completely or told him to leave her side, but hearing that she no longer relied on him still hurt far more than he expected. For the first time, Cecil realized just how emotionally attached he had become to protecting her. Before he could think any further, another student suddenly rushed into the room in panic. The student breathlessly revealed that Bertia had fallen down the stairs. The moment Cecil heard those words, every trace of calmness vanished from his expression. Panic instantly overtook him as fear rushed through his mind. None of the earlier conversations mattered anymore. The only thing he could think about was Bertia. He immediately wondered how badly she had been hurt and whether she was safe. The tension in the room grew unbearable as worry completely consumed him. At the beginning, Bertia was resting on her bed after the recent incident when Cecil entered the room to check on her. The moment she saw him, Bertia immediately thanked him for coming all the way to visit her. She apologized for troubling him and making him worry because of what had happened. Even in her injured state, she still sounded more concerned about inconveniencing him than about herself. Cecil quietly looked at her and could not help thinking that she really was a strange girl. To him, caring for her was not a burden at all. Bertia was his fiancée, the person he loved the most, so protecting her and worrying about her felt completely natural. In fact, he considered it his right to stand by her side whenever she needed him. Men see this and still ask why fictional characters have higher approval ratings. After calming himself, Cecil gently asked what exactly had happened during the incident. Bertoria tried to downplay everything and casually explained that she had simply slipped from the stairs. However, Cecil was not satisfied with such a vague explanation. He asked her to explain everything properly from the beginning. Bertoria then explained that she had been helping carry materials for the student council. During that time, she had gone together with Flora, one of the members connected to her group of supporters. Everything had seemed normal at first, and they were simply transporting the supplies together without any trouble. While recalling the event, Bertoria suddenly remembered something important. She mentioned that she clearly remembered seeing pink-colored hair before the incident happened. Even after mentioning it, Bertea quickly tried to reassure Cecil again. She insisted that he did not need to worry because Kat had used magic on her at the exact moment she fell. A magical barrier had protected her before she hit the ground, which was why she escaped without serious injuries. Despite her calm words, Cecil noticed something else. Bertea's hands were trembling slightly while she spoke. Even though she continued pretending everything was fine, the fear hidden in her voice was impossible to ignore. Bertea quietly admitted that such things were normal for someone like her. Since she viewed herself as a villainess, she believed people would naturally hate her, target her, and even try to hurt her eventually. The moment Cecil heard that, his expression softened. He immediately reassured her that she no longer needed to carry those fears alone. He promised that he would personally uncover the truth and find whoever had caused her pain. Although part of him suspected that the heroine might be responsible, he still lacked complete proof. Wanting to comfort her, Cecil gently took Bertea's hand and kissed it. The gesture instantly calmed her anxious thoughts, but it caused her heart to race uncontrollably instead. Bertea's face turned completely red from embarrassment as she struggled to stay composed. Meanwhile, Cecil firmly repeated that he would expose the truth behind the incident no matter what. Hearing his determination made Bertea genuinely happy. After all, Cecil could never forgive anyone who tried to harm the person he cared about most. Not long after, Cecil gathered a meeting with the people he trusted the most. Everyone present was completely loyal to him. Once they assembled, Cecil calmly explained that he wanted their help with something important. The group immediately agreed without hesitation. One of them, who worked closely as a butler, even asked if Cecil wanted the culprit eliminated. However, Cecil quickly refused. He clarified that he did not want revenge or violence. He only wanted to discover the identity of the girl responsible for pushing Bertea. At first, everyone naturally assumed the heroine was responsible. Her jealousy toward Bertea had already become widely known throughout the academy, making her the obvious suspect. A week later, the tension surrounding the incident still had not disappeared. The heroine continued complaining angrily about Bertea and blamed her for ruining her reputation. According to her, everyone had started looking at her suspiciously because of the incident. Soon, Cecil arrived and revealed that the truth behind the incident had finally been uncovered. To everyone's surprise, the real culprit was not the heroine. Instead, the person responsible was Lilia. Cecil explained that Lilia secretly had feelings for Flora. Unfortunately, Flora had recently been spending more time with Bertea while helping her with student council work. Lilia had witnessed Flora and Bertea laughing together happily, and jealousy slowly consumed her after seeing them so close. The situation became even worse because Flora had previously been part of Lilia's fan club. Lilia already disliked Bertea before this, but watching the boy she loved casually smiling beside another girl completely shattered her patience. Instead of speaking honestly about her feelings, Lilia allowed her jealousy to grow until she finally lost control. In the end, she pushed Bertea down the stairs. Cecil openly declared that what Lilia had done was unforgivable. At that moment, the heroine desperately tried defending herself and claimed she was being falsely accused. However, Cecil immediately realized that she was secretly using charm magic while speaking. Understanding what she was attempting, he deliberately kept his distance from her while continuing the investigation calmly. Soon, everyone gathered together as Cecil prepared to reveal the complete truth publicly. He announced that the heroine had not pushed Bertea after all. Hearing this immediately made Lilia nervous. She quietly attempted to leave before anyone noticed, but Flora suddenly stopped her and asked where she thought she was going when the real discussion had only just begun. Cecil walked directly toward Lilia while thanking Flora for preventing her escape. Lilia nervously claimed that she was not feeling well and needed to leave immediately. However, Cecil refused to let her go so easily. Lilia angrily demanded proof that she had pushed Bertea. According to her, everyone was making baseless accusations without evidence. Before Cecil could respond, several girls who supported Bertea stepped forward. They revealed that they had secretly followed Lelia earlier and witnessed her changing places with someone suspicious shortly before the incident. That observation led them to suspect her involvement. Even then, Lelia stubbornly denied everything and insisted that their claims proved nothing. At that moment, Cecil's butler suddenly stepped forward and snatched away the pouch Lelia had been gripping the entire time. When he opened it, everyone inside froze in shock. Hidden inside was a pink wig. The wig perfectly matched the hair color connected to the earlier description. Seeing the evidence exposed publicly, Cecil calmly explained everything. Lelia had taken advantage of the hatred between Bertia and the heroine so that suspicion would naturally fall onto someone else. Her jealousy and insecurity had pushed her toward making a terrible decision. Meanwhile, Flora looked completely disappointed. It became obvious that he no longer viewed Lelia the same way after learning the truth. The tragedy of the entire situation was painfully simple. Instead of asking Flora honestly about his relationship with Bertia, Lelia allowed her assumptions to control her actions. She saw them laughing together and immediately believed the worst. If she had calmly spoken to him instead of acting out of jealousy, none of this would have happened. Later, Cecil gently carried Bertia away from the scene. While leaving, the heroine suddenly complained that Cecil should have comforted her instead, since she had suffered through all the accusations. However, Cecil coldly replied that it was not his responsibility. Frustrated, the heroine declared that Cecil had forgotten who the destined girl truly was. According to her, fate itself demanded that Cecil would eventually marry her and nobody else. The moment Bertia heard those words, shock completely overtook her. Almost instantly, she fainted. Later, Bertia regained consciousness while Cecil sat beside her in concern. One of the maids reassured him that Bertia was perfectly fine. Since the stair incident, Bertia had barely slept properly, and the exhaustion had finally overwhelmed her body. When Bertia slowly opened her eyes, Cecil gently told her not to move too much and assured her that everyone was standing beside her. Hearing those words, Bertia sat up and soon realized that many people outside were genuinely waiting and worrying about her. For the first time in a long while, Bertia felt truly supported. Seeing so many people care about her filled her heart with happiness, and little by little, the fear inside her finally began disappearing.